Hello, YouTube world. Welcome back to another Nerdventure. I know it's been quite a long time. I even changed the channel name in between the last video and this current video back to Nerdventures away from 24 frames because I realized that I really want to focus on covering all types of visual mediums, not just movies. I still love and collect comics after purging and recollecting half of the books behind me. I'm back on the bandwagon. So today we're going to be talking about Conan the Barbarian. He's been very popular in the few comics communities that I am a part of. And if you're anything like me, you're very excited for Conan coming back to Marvel in 2019. So let's get right into it and answer some of the questions about how do you collect Conan the Barbarian comics dating all the way back from 1970 to now. First off, let me start by saying that the reason I think Conan is a big deal right now is because the rights just transferred back to Marvel in January 2019, which is currently happening right now, and the #1 of the new Conan the Barbarian just came out last week, written by Jason Aaron and penciled by Muhammad Asrar. I have not read the content. You know me, I'm more of a collected editions kind of guy, but it is out there if you're interested. And because of the rights transfer, there have been some developments with printings from Dark Horse Comics and new printings from Marvel, and it seems like there's a lot of questions going on. So let's get right down to it and start with Marvel Comics, the original Conan run. Back in the 70s, Marvel had a great deal of success with licensed properties. Conan for sure was one of them, as well as Star Wars and some others that they had. Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff like the John Carter Warlord of Mars omnibus I've talked about. And Conan was one of the leading properties from basically 1970 all the way up through the early 90s, which for me personally is just like one of my favorite periods of comics, that kind of golden age right up until you get the kind of Image Comics, like hyper extreme style of the 90s. Conan was running that entire time. It started with a #1 issue in 1970 and finished at number 275 in 1993. So that's an extremely large amount of issues. The first 24 of them were penciled by Barry Windsor Smith, and it's a pretty celebrated kind of run. He was a pretty unknown artist at the time in the late 60s, just coming off of basically doing backup work at Marvel. Marvel originally wanted to hire, or at least Roy Thomas wanted to hire John Buscema to pencil the Conan series starting in 1970. He was deemed too expensive, so Barry Windsor Smith was brought on for the first 25 issues. By the time he left the comic at issue 25, John Buscema came right in, and he penciled that comic, let me see here, from issue 25 all the way up through like 190, right? That's like 175-ish unbroken interior pencils, which is crazy if you know anything about the output of interior pencilers today. And during most of this run, from basically like #1 into the 100s and then again at the end in the 200s, this run was written by Roy Thomas, who is an excellent writer, I believe was an editor at Marvel, wrote some of the Avengers books as well. I don't think he's one of those guys like, he's not your Alan Moore or your Grant Morrison who have kind of 10 out of 10 stories as well as some like 5 out of 10 stories. He's more somebody who's like always 8 out of 10. Super consistent. I would kind of liken him to Archie Goodwin, like around that same time period, just consistently knocking out awesome tales, and Conan was no exception. He has a really long and celebrated run on Conan. So that Conan the Barbarian was the main Marvel title from 1970 to 1993. Now in 1974, Marvel wanted to re-up their Conan availability, and they started the Savage Sword of Conan, which again ran for 200 odd issues, I think like in the 230s, and again ended in the mid-90s. This was a black and white magazine-size book, which meant that it didn't have to conform to the Comics Code Authority. Not that the Comics Code had the literal power to come in and pull a book off shelves, but for the kind of age range, the young adult age range the comics were in, people were looking for that Comics Code to kind of keep things like PG-13 at most rating. Savage Sword did not have that, and it attracted a lot of some of the best ink illustrators from that time period. Similar to Eerie and Creepy, other magazines from that time period, it brought in European artists to do a lot of the interior work, as well as Marvel staple artists to do interior work. It's a little bit darker, kind of short stories, and it has some really nice painted covers by guys like Boris Vallejo. If you're into like the painted fantasy cover stuff, they've got you covered as well. Also, during that time, from the 1980 to I think about 1989, there was a third major Conan series called King Conan, which was later retitled as Conan the King, which ran simultaneous to the main Conan the Barbarian story. It again was just a numbered issue of comics. I don't know how many of those there are off the top of my head. Those are the three, not six, three main Conan series that Marvel's produced. Over the years, they also did a number of graphic novels in the 80s when that was a thing, those Marvel original graphic novels. They also did a couple series of like minis, 3-issue series here and there. That was mostly done in the later 90s when they still had the license, but they weren't doing ongoing series. And they also did a few other like odds and ends sort of Conan crossovers with some other comics and what if comics and stuff like that. But for the most part, those three series are the big important ones from Marvel and the ones that most people are looking to collect. And lucky you for watching this video, because the entire reason I'm making it is that next week Marvel is releasing its first in the line of Conan oversized hardcover Omnis, like all these ones back here behind me, which is very exciting for me personally. They're getting remastered with the original intended coloring, not like some of the reprints which have recolored them. So far, there have been 2 Omnis solicited for the straight-up Conan the Barbarian run. This collects the 70s run. And there's also been 1 Omni for the Savage Sword of Conan, collecting the black and white mid-70s through 80s run. So, very simple. If you are collecting Marvel Omnibus hardcovers of Conan right now, as of January 2019, you are getting the original 70s content. That is what Marvel is printing in hardcovers. They are doing some other printings of Dark Horse content, but that is in Epic Collections. So anything you get from Marvel in an omnibus, as of right now, is going to be the original 70s run. I'm hopeful, really crossing my fingers on this, because like I said, 200 issues, 300 issues, it's a huge amount of content. I'm hopeful that they finish the omnibus line for Conan. I'm hopeful that they finish the omnibus line for Savage Sword. I'm even hopeful that we get an omnibus line for King of Conan or Conan the King. But right now, all of the Omnis that Marvel are doing are original Conan content. If you're confused, it's very simple, right? If you're buying an Omni, it's from the 70s or 80s. I think the art is exceptional, really solid storytelling. I would highly recommend anybody jump on that content if you are a fan of older Bronze Age comics, because John Buscema, it's one of the finest, comics artists ever, and his work on Conan is just amazing. Like I said, about 175 issues of incredible pencil work. So seriously, get on that stuff. But here's where things start to get a bit confusing. After 2000, Marvel stopped publishing Conan comics entirely. Dark Horse picked up the rights, as they have with some other rights, such as Star Wars, and in 2003 started publishing their own Conan comics. Before I get to the Dark Horse stuff, let me say, the Dark Horse trade paperback series have collected the entire original Marvel run of Conan the Barbarian, King Conan, and Savage Sword of Conan. All of that original Marvel stuff has been printed by Dark Horse. It is in paperback, it is standard size, and for a lot of the Conan issues, it is digitally recolored to do like what I consider to be a very ugly kind of modern gradient Photoshop style coloring. But if you're worried about the omnibus maybe not getting printed all the way up through issue 275, there are 34 issues or trades rather, of the Chronicles of Conan, which collects all of that original Conan content. There are something like 22 really thick Savage Sword of Conan black and white books, and I believe there's something like 9 or 10-ish trade paperbacks of King Conan. All that Marvel stuff can be had from Dark Horse. As of 2019, they don't have the rights to print it anymore, but it is still available in a lot of comic shops, and if you just want to collect the entire run right now, not wait for any of the Omnis, you can go the Dark Horse reprint route and grab that content from Dark Horse reprints and not have to deal with Marvel Omnis at all, if you want to. Then, to make matters even more confusing, Dark Horse began to publish their own books. Originally, this was called just Conan, ran for 50 issues. Then it became Conan the Cimmerian. Then I believe it became Conan the Avenger. Then it became Conan the Barbarian. Then it became Conan the Avenger. Then it became Conan the Slayer. There were a lot of different, basically, reboots of Conan under Dark Horse. The 3 big, oversized books that are popular right now from Dark Horse in hardcover are the Colossal Conan, Colossal Conan the Cimmerian, and Colossal King Conan. Those are all absolute, really large, oversized hardcover books. The first one, Colossal Conan, I've done a review on before, and it collects the first 50 issues of Conan the Barbarian written by Kurt Busiek. with art from Carrie Nord. It's an awesome book. It's also extremely expensive and out of print. The second of these Colossal series is the Colossal Conan the Cimmerian, which is the exact follow-up to that one. It collects Conan the Cimmerian, basically the 25 issues of that. It's a little bit thinner. It came into print and came out of print very quickly at the end of last year. It is still available for, I think, around $100, depending on if you can buy, sell, trade, however you want to work it out from different either online groups or from retailers. That is also really lovely, has art from Thomas Giarello, who took over from Carrie Nord after, and it looks amazing. I think Thomas Giarello's art is beautiful. And then finally, the Colossal King Conan, again, art from Thomas Giarello, written, I believe, by Timothy Truman, most of it, and that collects the series of King Conan miniseries that Dark Horse did, which altogether numbers 24 issues. Those are the three, again, 3 not 6, big hardcover collections that people are interested from Dark Horse. They are no longer being printed because Dark Horse has lost the license. If you want to get those, you should get them now, because in all likelihood, Marvel will not reprint this Conan material in oversized hardcovers. It's pretty unusual for them to do that for other stuff. What they're doing right now, and what they will probably continue to do, is print them in epic collections like they did with Star Wars. So there are going to be Conan epic collections coming out very soon in January, February, March, which include some of this Dark Horse content. But if you want the huge, big, absolute-size hardcovers, you need to jump on that sooner than later, because the Colossal King and Colossal Conan the Cimmerian are going to go up in price, I believe, to be as desirable and hard to find as the original Colossal Conan. Speaking of King Conan, if you do not want to shell out for the Colossal King Conan, there's only one way to get these in collected edition, and that is these 5 King Conan trades from Dark Horse. These collect the 24 issues of King Conan, which again, penciled by Thomas Giarello. It's a really, I think, beautiful series to look at. The problem is some of these books are going out of print because now Dark Horse does not have the rights to print these anymore, and Marvel has not announced how they will be collecting King Conan. So if you want King Conan specifically and don't want to gamble on Marvel, waiting to collect it, you need to seek out these 5 trade paperbacks from the King Conan run. That's the only way currently to get King Conan from Dark Horse, right? The modern King Conan series, not the 80s King Conan series, but the Dark Horse King Conan can only be had in these 5 trade paperbacks right now until Marvel solicits them somewhere else. I have a decent amount of confidence that they will solicit it, but if it's anything like the Star Wars Epic Collections, they've been soliciting those things for probably 3 years now. So if you want to read this content in some collected form, you either need to pick up these 5 trade paperbacks or be, ready to wait for possibly a few years to get that content in Epic Collections. Since we're on miniseries, we might as well continue with the Conan Reader. This was recently released by Dark Horse, sort of a last-ditch effort before they lost their license to get all of their Conan mini-stories and one-shots and stuff collected in one place. It collects most of them, I don't think all of them, but it's a pretty, stonking thick paperback. Already, Marvel has solicited an Epic Collection which collects some of this. It is not the exact same table of contents as this book. This book is thicker and cheaper than Marvel's versions will be. But this content will be collected by Marvel. So no need to worry if you missed out on the Conan Reader. However, if you have no preference as to whether or not you're collecting Marvel or Dark Horse trade paperbacks, right? They're all just trade paperbacks. You can get a lot of this content for pretty cheap. It's a solid read. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it can be had for right now in the Conan Reader. And a lot of these short stories will later be collected in Epic Collections, I'm sure. And speaking of last-ditch efforts by Dark Horse, here is the line of 7 Conan Dark Horse Omni, okay? These are standard size paperback books that collect the mainline Dark Horse Conan run. This includes the stuff that is included in the Colossal Conan and Colossal Conan the Cimmerian, but it does not include the stuff that's in Colossal King Conan, which was in those 5 trade paperbacks I showed you earlier. These are pretty nice, softcover Omni. They're, again, cheaper than an Epic Collection, and again, actually they're probably about the same size as an Epic Collection. Dark Horse is no longer able to print them as of January 2019, so if you would like to get them in Dark Horse Paperback Omnibus, you need to get that now. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for Marvel to put out the Epic Collections of this content, which they've already started to solicit, so don't worry, this content will be available in Epic Collections. This covers all the way through that mainline Conan run that I was talking about, which is Conan, Conan the Cimmerian, Conan the Avenger, Conan the Barbarian, and all of those kind of sub-series. Those are all collected in these Dark Horse Omni. If you don't want to buy the Omni, there are also regular-sized sequential Dark Horse paperbacks of their Conan material, which I believe goes through like 1 to 22. And again, collects the exact same material as these omnibus. It's just in an individual trade, and this was a way for Dark Horse to package it all up and sell it right at the end of their time with the license. These are, I think, good quality. It's a good printing. If you don't want to either A, wait for the Epic collections, or B, shell out for the Colossal collections, I think that this is a good way to go. But if you don't jump on it, you know, in the next handful of months, you're probably going to be waiting for Epic collections because they're going to be either more expensive or, if not expensive, just not available in many bookstores. And then finally, if you care, the last series before Conan went to Marvel was Conan the Slayer. Conan the Slayer is collected in 2 trade paperbacks. It is not included in these Omnis. They end before Conan the Slayer, and the very last 12 issues of Marvel's Conan is in these 2, Volume 1 and 2, Conan the Slayer. Again, available now, out of print technically, and you're going to have to wait for Marvel to resolicit it if you don't want to buy these Dark Horse collections. So I believe that's everything. I tried to be as clear and concise as I can about this different content. I think a lot of it is really wonderful. Some of the Dark Horse Conan stuff, you know, dips and fluctuates as you get further into it. Similar with Marvel, some of the Marvel stuff dips and fluctuates as you get into the early 90s. But as of right now, Marvel has the rights going forward. They will be reprinting Dark Horse stuff in paperback, so you can absolutely get it there. They will also be printing their own original stuff in hardcover, so you can get it there. Dark Horse no longer has any right to print the Conan stuff. However, some of their versions are preferable if you're interested in the super absolute oversized books. And some of their versions could be cheaper if you're interested in these Omni versions instead of waiting for the Epic collections. I hope that was a clear enough video explaining the different runs of Conan and how they're collected. I really do think that if you guys have any interest, please, please, please buy the Conan Omni that are coming out. Do it for me, if nothing else, because I want Marvel to see that these Omni will sell and that they can finish the Conan original run, because I really, really want all that work in oversized hardcover. It's some of the most beautiful 70s and 80s comic artwork that you can find. You know, it's very morally ambiguous. Conan is not the best guy in the world. It's just a really great example of sword and sorcery, you know, done right in my personally favorite age of comic books. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it's helpful for you in finding your different Conan collections, what you personally would like to pick up. And please let me know if I continue doing if I continue doing videos in 2019, what kind of content you would like to see me cover. I've been reading a bunch of different comics, watching a bunch of different movies, doing all kinds of different stuff. So anything related to the visual medium, I would love to cover, especially if you guys are interested in hearing from me. So thank you so much for watching this again after I've been away for so long, and I hope you enjoyed our nerd venture together. I hope to be back soon with another one. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments about what you'd like to see from the channel going forward. Thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great day.